Hello, and welcome to Module 2, Considering Learning Styles in Mentoring. Take a moment to reflect. How do you learn best? Do you know what your preferred learning style is? Do you tend to teach others with strategies that have worked to help you learn? When mentoring, knowing the preferred learning style of the mentee can provide insight into how best structure the mentoring and learning experience. It can also provide the mentor with insight into the mentee as they establish and nurture the mentoring partnership. There are many learning style inventories available, but for this module we will focus on two that are well represented in the literature. By the end of this module, participants will be able to articulate the importance of knowing a learner's preferred learning style and describe the role learning styles play in the learning process. Define a learning space, and name the characteristics of a learning space that facilitates learning. And finally, apply either the Kolb Learning Style Inventory or the Index of Learning Styles in a clinical mentoring relationship. The idea of learning through doing and learning from our experiences is a logical, theoretical foundation for mentoring in a clinical setting. Experiential learning theory was spearheaded by David Kolb in 1984. Kolb defined learning as a continuous process that individuals cycle through across the lifespan. In experiential learning theory, learning is considered as a process whereby knowledge is created through the transformation of experience. Learning occurs as a result of synergistic transactions between the person and their environment. Learning is a holistic, lifelong process of adapting to and interacting with the world. The learning process is not only about cognition, but also about how individuals think, how they perceive, and how they behave. Each aspect of the learning process integrates and works together to help expand our knowledge about the world around us. When considering mentoring methods to guide critical thinking for achievement in clinical learning experiences, the mentee's preferred learning style is an important factor to consider as part of the mentoring partnership. Kolb's learning cycle is a recurring process of an individual's interaction with their internal thought processes and their experiences with the world around them. Concrete experience is the first part of the learning cycle. This represents what we feel. Essentially, it is the event, or what happened. For example, a client comes into the clinic with a distal radius fracture. This is the concrete experience. We are presented with a problem or an event. This takes us to the next part of the learning cycle, reflective observation. At this part of the learning cycle, we are watching and reasoning through our experience. In the clinical scenario, this is the evaluation portion of the process of learning how to treat the distal radius fracture. Not only does this include the evaluation of the client and their injury, but it also looks at the anatomy, treatment protocols, x-rays, and at this part we are also considering the structures involved with the injury. Once we have observed the injury and reflected on how that impacts the client, we must move to the next part of the learning cycle, abstract conceptualization. At this stage, we are thinking through what we have experienced, reflected upon, and observed, and we begin to make sense of it. At this stage, we begin to develop ideas. Again, in the clinical scenario, in this phase of the learning cycle, we are beginning to formulate ideas about why the client is presenting with wrist stiffness, finger stiffness, weakness, or limited function. As we develop ideas, we then move to the final stage in the learning cycle, active experimentation. In this phase, we are formulating our plan and determining what we need to do next. At this point in our clinical scenario, we formulate and implement our treatment plan. As we do this, we are presented with new concrete experiences and the cycle starts over. Let's return to our clinical scenario of a client who has a distal radius fracture. For this example, we have begun to implement treatment, but our client experiences increased pain and edema following the planned interventions. We now have another concrete experience, and we must adapt and therefore go through the cycle again, thereby also continuing through the learning process. According to the experiential learning theory, learning does not take place until we have gone through each part of the cycle in sequence. We can, however, start anywhere in the cycle, but for learning to be complete, we must go through each aspect of the cycle and go in order. The way you learn determines how you live, make decisions, solve problems. It involves changing, collaborating, innovating, and improving. Assessment of each individual's learning style or process is the first step to understanding how to create effective learning experiences for the novice therapists. Influenced by experiential learning theory, Kolb developed the Kolb Learning Style Inventory. The most recent version, version 4.0, is now named the Kolb Experiential Learning Profile, or the KELP. The KELP was developed as a self-reflection tool to assist learners in gaining a better understanding of themselves through their individual preferences in approaching an ideal learning experience. The KELP is an online assessment that takes 10 to 15 minutes to complete. An individual assessment costs around $35 and can be found at www.experientiallearninginstitute.org. You can also scan the QR code on the screen to go to the website for more information on the KELP. Each learning style represents a combination of preferences for certain regions of the learning cycle. Individuals who have an initiating learning style learn best in the active experimentation and concrete experience parts of the learning cycle. Those who have an experiencing style use a combination of concrete experience, active experimentation, and reflective observation. The imagining style combines concrete experience and reflective observation. A reflecting learning style combines reflective observation, concrete experience, and abstract conceptualization. Other types of learning experiences are also analyzing, thinking, acting, and deciding. And you can look more onto the website with more in-depth information on these, but it just gives you an idea of the different aspects of that Kolb experiential learning profile. It should be noted that scores are not definitive, but are a starting point for exploration and understanding how one learns best. Another learning style inventory is called the Index of Learning Styles. This inventory was influenced by experiential learning theory and developed by Richard Felder and Barbara Solomon at North Carolina State University. The ILS is a 44-question learning style inventory that takes less than 10 minutes to complete. Once complete, a learning style profile and explanation is provided. It is free to use and can be found at www.webtools.ncsu.edu/learning-styles, or you can also scan this QR code for more information on the Index of Learning Styles. In this learning style inventory, active learners tend to retain and understand information best by doing. Reflective learners prefer to think about it quietly first. Active learners tend to like group work better than reflective learners, who typically prefer to work alone. Sensing learners tend to like learning facts. Intuitive learners often prefer discovering possibilities in relationships. Sensors tend to be more practical and careful than intuitors, and intuitors tend to work faster and be more innovative than sensors. Visual learners remember best by what they see, and verbal learners get more out of words, written and spoken explanations. Sequential learners tend to gain understanding in linear steps, with each step following logically from the previous one. while global learners tend to learn in large jumps, absorbing material and then suddenly getting it. An individual's preference for one of the categories may be strong, moderate, or mild. It is preferable to strike a balance between opposing learning styles. To be an effective learner and problem solver, you must be able to function in both opposing modes. There are many learning style inventories available online. There is even a website with a learning style quiz called whatismylearningstyle.com. It is important, however, to consider the evidence along with the validity and reliability of each learning style inventory. References regarding the validity and reliability of the two discussed in this module are listed in the references at the end of the module for your review if you so choose. In order for learning to occur, and for full engagement in all 4 areas of the learning cycle, a learning space must be present. According to this experiential learning theory, there are 5 dimensions of a learning space. The psychological dimension consists of an individual's learning style, their skills, and their values. The social dimension consists of the learner's peers, mentors, teachers, and members of the community. The institutional dimension consists of policy, organizational goals, and traditions. The cultural dimension consists of values, norms, history, and language. The physical dimension consists of clinic settings, architecture, and environment. For optimal learning to take place, the learning environment should be welcoming, hospitable, safe, supportive, and challenging. As mentors, we have an opportunity to create a space that is conducive to facilitating the learning process. By providing a framework, learning style inventories and questionnaires can foster a conversation among learners and educators about how to create the most effective learning environments and spaces. Critics of heavy reliance on learning styles note that they are not always reliable indicators of learning strengths and weaknesses. It is important to note that learning style profiles suggest behavioral tendencies. They are not perfect predictors of behavior. They are merely a tool to provide both the mentor and the mentee information to further strengthen the mentoring partnership and foster the learning experience. Remember, learning is a lifelong process. This process is made up of learning styles or preferences, the learning environment, and the knowledge required for mastery of a concept or skill. When mentoring new therapists, each concept we teach them should serve to enhance their learning process. In essence, the process itself is the ultimate outcome. Thank you for your attention and participation. Here are the references for this module. We'll see you in Module 3.